The immediate origin of the Black Plague was in southern Russia.
Other origins include the Tatar army and Central Asia.
In addition, ships began carrying 3 masts, which began year-round shipping, and rats would be on the ships carrying the flies that had the disease.
The disease spread by flea was bubonic, and spread person to person was pneumonic.
There was also human waste in the streets, dead animals and beggars, overcrowded rooming, and just overall low personal hygiene. Symptoms of the disease were boils or buboes that had agonizing pain and were found in the armpit, groin, or neck.
There was also black spots around the body.
Also, there's violent coughing, which would be spitting blood, which signaled bacilli in the blood, and victim would die 2 to 3 days later.
Perhaps 4.2 million was the total mortality in England, and 1.4 million of this was from the Black Death. Florence lost between 1/2 to 2/3 of its population in 1347. The Black Death was really high mortality, which brought a rise in prices and a shortage of labor workers.
There was also increased productivity in Europe, increased job opportunities, increased slave prices, increased sexual orgies, religious prayer, and self-torture, and there was an increase of mass graves. Also, the clergy would generally help and care for the sick. Therefore, all the leaders, such as the bishops, began to die, which started the decline of the church's prestige.
In 1259, the French and the English signed the Treaty of Paris, which said that Edward III would become the vassal for the French crown for the Duchy of Aquitaine.
Edward III would pay homage to Philip VI for Aquitaine, and later Philip confiscated the duchy, which was a violation of the treaty and cause for war. At the Battle of Crecy in 1346, it was an English victory due to the speed of the longbow.
At Poitiers, Edward's son, Edward the Black Prince, used his taxes to beat the French.
In 1419, the English gained Agincourt and went up to the walls of Paris. Joan of Arc comes in to save the French monarchy by speaking to the court as a man and telling them that King Charles VII must be crowned. So she was sent to Orleans, and there the English withdrew, and 10 days later Charles VII was crowned.
This marked the turn point in the war for the French. Joan was then captured by the Burgundians, who were an ally of the English, but Charles VII believed that Joan was too popular and she threatened his power, so he did not buy her back. She was then later killed.
The costs and consequences of the war for the French were thousands were killed and hundreds of thousands of acres of farmland were destroyed.
For the English, they spent over 5 million on the war and they lost a lot of men. This also stimulated the development of the English Parliament, and for both the French and the English, this war promoted nationalism and transformed the feudal army into the modern army. Originally, the popes lived in Avignon. Then Pope Gregory XI brought the papal back to Rome in 1377 because the Romans wanted a pope who would live in Rome. Urban VI was then elected.
The cardinals then met in Avignon to elect Clement VII as the anti-pope. Later, in 1409, a council was summoned in Pisa, and Martin V was elected, denouncing both the other popes, and Martin then got rid of the council, which led to the Great Reform.
Additionally, during this time, there were a few critics of the church, including John Wycliffe and his followers, the Lollards, and Jan Hus.
They believed that you should not listen to the leaders of the church, and instead, you should have a personal relationship with God.